And action. All right, can you introduce yourself, please?
What's up? I'm Steve Schaeffer. And I'm an actor, musician, things like that.
Yeah, so I'm going to be talking today about your experience as a singer, songwriter, and artist in general. So, what are some of your first musical memories? Like, do you have a first favorite song you remember growing up, or maybe even just the first time something sticks in your head from way back in the day?
I got a bunch. I'm a very sentimental person, so I have like a list of things.
Oh, wow.
I remember the first time that I experienced music was the song "Kissed by a Rose" by Seal. Oh, yeah. I remember going, I'm Catholic, and my brother went to preschool at this place in Sioux Falls called the Cathedral, the St. Joseph's Cathedral. And it was a school, and then it was attached to this big opulent, I don't know if it's a basilica, but my dad would sneak me in there, and we'd go, and I would just bang on their big piano and sing "Kissed by a Rose." Very akin to like how you see like a dog in like those YouTube videos and they like howl. Just me as like a 4-year-old, not knowing what I was doing, but my dad got a kick out of it and I got a kick out of it, and no one stopped us was the thing. So.
Kissed by a Rose, that's a funny first one, yeah.
Yeah, that was my first memory. Oh, it was the Batman movie.
Okay, yeah, it was all around you. On the radio. Did you start on guitar, piano, or something else?
I started on a guitar that my mom bought me. It was a $40 acoustic from a garage sale. And I originally wanted golf clubs because my brother played golf, and I was like, because I was born in February, and it was like this weird, where they were both $40, and my mom's like, you gotta pick one. I was like, well, I can always learn how to play golf eventually.
Yeah.
But never bought golf clubs, and I am actually terrible at golf.
That was a big crossroads right there.
Big.
Golf clubs to guitar. That could have been a whole different
thought?
Steve. If you picked the golf clubs.
Exactly. But yeah, I've been playing guitar since then, and I never learned how to play piano or anything else but guitar. So.
How old was that when you got the guitar?
I was 11.
Okay. And did you have a teacher right away, or are you self-taught, or a little both?
A little bit of both. Mostly self-taught. I did get guitar lessons for like a year from Case Music Studios in T, South Dakota.
Shout out.
Where I learned like basic chords and like the pentatonic scale was as far as I went.
Yeah.
And yeah, that was how I learned. And then everything else was self-taught by Green Day or Guns N' Roses or Led Zeppelin. So,
awesome. Yeah. So like you kind of touched on it. First major musical influences.
Yeah, it was. So I listened to like my parents' music, which was. My parents weren't musicians and they weren't very musical people. Like my mom listened to a lot of like dance mixes, like when she would work out and stuff like that. Like that sort of, that was really big, like the house music in the early 90s.
Oh my God, yeah.
Mid to late 90s and all that stuff.
Yeah. Eurodance music.
A little bit of that, yeah. Like Eiffel 65, that song, like those were like, and like NSYNC and the Backstreet Boys and Britney Spears and all that top 40 stuff. And then my dad listened to like the Steve Miller Band and Johnny Cash and Elvis, and that was it.
Yeah.
So, but like my mom was also really into like Guns N' Roses and AC/DC and Van Halen. And so that's sort of what I started listening to. And then I started to get influenced by like, American Idiot had just come out. And so I remember buying that CD. That and the Weird Al Yankovic's Bad Hair Day. I bought that one first, and then I bought that one next, and then I got really into Green Day, like you do when you're 12.
Totally.
And then I was like, what else is there? And this is like the advent of iTunes, and so I could just go on there and get like little $25 gift cards, and so I got their discography. And when I listened to Dookie, that's how I learned how to play guitar. Was I learned how to play Dookie from front to back.
Yeah.
Because like I don't know, like I was talking to my buddy Vince about this, who's my drummer. In my band, he said something where he's like, there's bands for different seasons of your life. Like we were talking about like Pearl Jam. He's like, I'm not into them yet, but I know I will be when I'm like 45 or something.
Totally.
Like I'm not a dad yet, so I don't quite get it.
Yeah.
But it's like Green Day and like Blink 182 and like Nirvana are meant for like when you're like 14 and 16. Yeah. And Dookie is very much so like that, like kind of preteen, whatever that angst. Maybe that's just my opinion, but
that 12-year-old window, like 12 to 14, that's like a real special window, and that's where you kind of start feeling like, oh, I can start to do this myself a little bit.
Yeah, you start to expand your idea of what music is, or like, this isn't just what I hear on the radio, or there's so much more out there, and it feels more personal. So there was that, but then there was a big moment when I was like 14, when I had kind of learned how to play guitar, and I would consider myself like that was my thing. My parents got like this music television channel, like it was like an extra cable thing that our subscriber was just like giving away. And so we had like a solid 2 years where we had like an old school, like what MTV used to be, like all the old people talk about, but it was just a music channel.
Yeah.
And I was obsessed with that. And I remember listening, I was like on AIM Instant Messenger, and Paranoid Android by Radiohead came on.
Yeah.
And I remember just, that was like, not to be dramatic, but it was a very, I remember it to this day. It was such a profound experience, but just being like so tractor beam vectored into it. And that's my favorite song of all time.
Really?
Just like the music video happening and just kind of having an awakening, like, oh, that's music. Like, I grew up in South Dakota, and so I wasn't exposed to a lot. And so this was like my first chance to like listen to like bands like, that was also like when the Screamo stuff started to happen, like Chiodos and Taking Back Sunday and the Afghan Wigs. Like, it took all of that shit and I was stuff. Can I swear in here?
Yeah, why not?
But yeah, so I would say Green Day and Radiohead were like the first things that kind of shook me.
How did you develop your songwriting style? Has it changed over time? Like when you look back at your first stuff to now, well, I'm sure it's changed a lot. So where did you start and where are you now, I guess?
I guess I didn't really start writing songs in earnest until I like moved to this. Well, even then it was very casual. But when I moved to the city in 2016, I was like, oh, I should probably like try to write words to these songs that I've been writing. And that was very arduous and very, I don't know, like elementary, where you're just like, I want to write good song. This is what good songs sound like. And there's some that have kind of survived a little bit but I kind of like realized that one, the ones that it always at the beginning is like stuff where you're like, well, that's stupid. This is a joke. And then you'll play it for someone and they're like, oh, that's good.
Right. And
it's kind of discovering that it's more about honesty. And so I guess that's my songwriting stuff, but like I'm a guitar player first.
Okay.
I started, that's just what I do. Like I'm constantly playing guitar and I'm always just trying to entertain myself and surprise myself and being like, I don't know, what can we do with this? And always kind of also trying to make myself better. It's like, I think it's mental illness where it's just like, I'm just like, this is cool, but it would be cooler if you did this, or like anybody could do that. It's as if music has to be that way. I know it doesn't have to be, but that's just been my approach for so long that it's just kind of not my style. Yeah. It's only recently where I'm just kind of like, 4 chords, and then we're trying to have fun here. We're trying to express, as opposed to feeling like you need to impress somebody. Right. And I'm not necessarily going away from that, but it's definitely sort of an ethos that is not necessarily at the forefront, but it's in collaboration with writing good songs, where it's like, how do we make this cool, but also more importantly now, how do we be honest? Yeah. I think last year I wrote a lot of music, just basically stopping myself from being so critical of myself, but also just trying to really satisfy myself. And, as a person who has sometimes, like, as a heteronormative guy in the Midwest, it's sometimes hard to, like, express yourself.
Totally.
And so, like, really using songwriting as a thing for me, where it's like, how do I want to express myself in a way that feels safe, but also a way that doesn't feel safe.
Yeah.
But I still feel protected.
That's really relatable. I'd say that I have a similar approach. And it's also good, probably healthy, that it's like an internal validating as opposed to like you're seeking validation from the outside. I mean, that's an important piece to it. I think first and foremost, you got to write what you're into and what makes you feel good.
Yeah. Writing a lot of opulent and beautiful stuff is cool, but you're fine just the way that you are.
Right.
And people are going to listen. And so sometimes you feel like you have to put on a whole show in order to get someone to want to listen. But realizing that it doesn't have to be that hard and that difficult. Also just like the idea of like, I write a lot of sad stuff and like, you just don't want to bum people out. But,
right.
But I mean, I think we actually talked about this where it's like it's the pill in the slice of cheese. It's the chocolate out.
Yeah.
So we're like, I want you to take this and I want you to consume it. And while you're listening to something beautiful acoustically, you're also getting what I'm actually trying to say, and you're hearing my feelings.
It's a trick in a way. A
little
bit.
And it's unfortunately as some sort of neurosis, I don't know if this is the right word for it, but some neuropathy where I feel like I can't express myself without making people, without ostracizing people. Yeah. That has led to a very interesting way to write music where it has to be big, but then you're also very serious.
Yeah. Do you have a set process for songwriting, music first, lyrics, or does it kind of just have to start where it starts?
It really just kind of starts where it starts, I guess. I mean, mostly guitar first and then adding lyrics to it. Yeah, sometimes I'll sit on songs for like months and it'll take a whole month to write. A lot of songs I've written recently, 20 minutes. Just, I found that like a lot of times, that's also like where I won't start writing the lyrics, but I'll think about them a lot and maybe I'll journal about them, but I won't formally do it. It's a lot of like letting it cook or stew or percolate in there, and sometimes you find a lyric that kind of connects everything. So yeah, I mean, I think there's been a few times where I'll just like write poetry and it'll come out. I found like the only thing that I really have in terms of formula is just like focus. Where it's like, these are the 3 songs that I'm thinking about and working on right now. And whether that focus is just like intentional or if it's just in the back of your head, that work isn't lost, if you will. Like something is happening through that.
Yeah, you let it cook a little bit, kind of, right? It's
that's
like,
a good way to put it.
Yeah, I can relate. Like you just got something that you know there's something there and you just kind of keep it in the back of your mind.
Yeah.
And then something will fall into place sooner or later if you're tuned into it. Does theory play a role in your songwriting, or are you an instinctual songwriter? You go by your ear more so than like the right combination of chords and scales?
Probably I have my habits, if you will, in terms of like theory, where like, and that's more like songwriter theory. But in terms of like composition and sound, I just like, if this sounds cool, then it's probably something cool theory-wise. And if like I do get stuck, then I'll be like, well, what am I actually doing here? And then I'll find out what chord it is or something. Like I have a few songs where, like I've had theory people come up to me, they're like, that's really cool where you do this and you do that with that. And I'm like, sure, I don't know. It just sounded cool to me.
Yeah, so it starts, I guess, with like that instinct, and then if you need to fine tune it, you can do that with some theory.
Yeah, but super, like I learned how to read like vocal music, like as a kid in choir and theater and stuff. But yeah, reading guitar music and like understanding that there's more than one note, that's hard. I don't want to look at that.
Yeah, we don't have time for that.
I don't have time for 2 notes played at once. What?
Absolutely not. All right, so besides a singer-songwriter, you're also an actor. You have some experience on stage. So does that inform your performing, maybe your stage performing with your band, or your writing, or maybe any part of your musical process?
I think, yeah. I mean, honestly, kind of, I think I've become a better actor after focusing so much on music. It has taught me to do less. That when you're, kind of what we alluded to earlier, is like the less you do, the more actually compelling you are.
For sure.
Especially in like stage performance, and like you don't have to push. A lot of times I found like songwriting or like performing it solo by yourself is a lot like film acting, where it's like the less you do and the less like kind of keeping it in a conversational way. Like if anyone's ever talking to you and they have to be demonstrative about everything that they do, they're not doing a good job conveying. Let your lyrics and your voice do the talking and your guitar playing. And trust that's enough. So.
Trust yourself. But do you have a practice regimen? You are, I'll pay you a compliment, a very tight guitar player, and a lot of your songs are pretty intricate, not something your average person would just pick up and play. So do you have a pretty strict practice regimen? Or you mentioned you just play all the time, so is it kind of built in? Yeah,
I play a lot. I actually have been playing a lot of bass recently, and that's helping with the strength of my left hand quite a bit. I just practice my songs a lot. I've been doing a lot of lately where I record myself as if I'm performing the song, and that's actually been huge. Also, recording is very helpful because when you're recording, and when you're like me, when budget is a constraint and you don't have a lot of time, a lot of recording is getting it done right the first time and being as specific as possible. So yeah, I found when I've recorded a song, it's basically the best shape that it's in. So I try to record myself as much as possible, whether it's also doing it with the metronome and being very specific about it in terms of like choices. And I kind of do this sometimes, but I kind of do this really, even if you do make that choice where like sometimes I'll do this, sometimes I'll do that, as long as you're cognizant of that. That's kind of where my practice has sort of gone lately.
Songwriters of today who inspire you, and what do you find inspiring about them?
I love Adrian Lenker.
Big Thief.
Big Thief. I don't know, like songwriters of today. I get a lot of inspiration from people I see in the open mic scene.
For sure.
Just like
such an underrated resource, I think.
Oh, I've written like a few songs after watching someone play something and be like, I want to write a song like
Absolutely.
that, and then just doing it.
Yeah.
But like people that I really love, I don't know, like I love Chris Thiele. I love Madison Cunningham. I really like virtuosic players, or like players who really consider what they do a craft. Like Chris Thiele, he plays mandolin and like bluegrass stuff that's like adjacent, but the ferocity for which he plays and how much joy he gets from it, from his execution, it's just, that's what I strive for. Yeah, I mean, Mannequin Pussy and like all those harder bands, Sprints. Mm-hmm. I love the anger and the whatever is coming out in terms of their voices mixed with the hardcore style of playing. Mm-hmm. It just hits different. It hits in a better sort. I believe it more. And also, like, I mean, my OGs like Elliott Smith. He's not with us anymore, but like,
I love that guy.
I love how he can just make a feeling, where it's just everything that he does, whether it's his lyrics or the music that he writes, or even his persona or his approach.
Yeah,
it all is it's a mood. It's a whole sort of mise en scene that he provides that you are living in, and it feels like magical.
And he's got that understated thing that you mentioned.
Yeah.
Like that's just who he is. He doesn't have to shout or overdo it. He's quiet, quiet player, but you really get hit with what he's doing.
Yeah, I yearn for that. I want to have that sort of effortless sort ofness. And then also, I think my favorite is Paul Simon is sort of my idol. I feel like I just resonate with how he plays. I mean, also like all of those other country players, like Greg Koch is one who he just oozes style, and like what he plays is so specific to him. Mm-hmm.
Do you have any non-musical influences, like movies, TV shows, books? I don't know, paintings.
Oh wow. I don't know. My dad. I like my dad a lot. He works really hard. He did a lot too. And my parents. Yeah, they really. I don't know. Just the idea. My dad would always say, "If you want something done well, you got to do it yourself."
True.
And so like taking pride in your work and like understanding what are you willing to do to be good. Like it's time, it's effort, it's sacrifice. If it's easy, then it's, you want it to be easy, but like if you want something, you have to accept that it's going to take work to get. Mm-hmm. Cool. I love things that are detailed and like I'm watching Severance right now, and I love just the care and the forethought and just the things in the background, where if you look up something, you're like, why did they use that number? Is there something significant about that number? And you look it up and it's like, it's just I think I'm using this word right, a panacea of anything that you can look. This would be super embarrassing. That's not correct.
Sounds good to me.
Yeah. But I love people who like create stuff with full on detail.
Yeah.
And
you said virtuosic earlier. So
virtuosic,
that nails it. Tell me a little bit about your gear. What are you rocking acoustically, electrically, and after that, dream guitar?
Hell yeah. I play in a band, Never Been Won't Go, and that is where most of my funds have been going in terms of gear. I did recently just buy this little Guild M120 GAD. It's from like 2008 to 2014 or something. They made all mahogany. They were made in Korea, but they sound so close to the actual Guild M20s. Yeah. So I love this guitar. It's small, and it's punchy, and I really appreciate that. I also have my Taylor 210CE, which is this enormous, gorgeous dreadnought that I've been playing the shit out of since I was 20, and that thing has traveled across the country, seen a lot of wear. Yeah. So I just thought let's diversify a little bit.
Sure.
And then I have a Gibson SG Special Faded. It's a 2008. It's got the Seymour Duncan Antiquities in it, and they sound so good. I love how it sounds with a little bit of spring reverb. I have a Fender Blues Junior. A lot of this stuff is like stuff that I can just afford. Like getting the tone idea, but what is the cheapest version of that? I like the big, dark Fender sound with my Gibson. And it's good for like bluesy sort of rock stuff. I have a few pedals. I've got the Earthquaker Devices Plumes pedal, which
Yes,
is
I got one of them.
oh my god, it is like kind of ubiquitous these days. But
Yeah.
it's just like a tube screamer but better.
For sure. Updated tube screen.
Yeah, sorry, Ibanez.
The Gen Z.
Yeah, it's like
Millennials, rather.
you can do anything from like a little bit of breakup and just kind of pushes your amp a little over the edge, all the way to something that is just kind of like raucous and like full on blues driver boss style, like where everything's dimed out.
I love the three-way selector you got.
Exactly.
Too. There's a lot of different character between each notch.
In the middle, you could get that like kind of like subtlety, but then on the far end, you can get it